Hey everybody, Stu Smith and Jeff Nichols here with another tactical fitness report. And as you guys noticed, Jeff is a little prettier today. So we actually have Catherine, who is the better half of performancefirstus.com, joining us today because we are going to talk about something that's very important, and that is performance anxiety when it comes to big events like the first day of Buds, first day of Hell Week, or the first, the night before Hell Week, all these things that are really getting us very anxious and can really disturb our performance. Catherine is going to help us with defining what that is going on and then helping us not only prevent it, but if in the situation that we're in, that situation's getting a little anxious, how to notice it and stop it from killing our performance. So,
Right.
Catherine, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. And I'm really glad Jeff made the recommendation of having you on for this one because he's exactly right. I mean, this is what you do, correct?
Yeah, it is. Yep. So I started doing a meditation practice for myself about 6 years ago, and then really wanted to give back. And I took a 2-year teaching program to be able to give back in a way that I think would be helpful, especially to this population as far as performance and performance anxiety.
So, real quick, you have a tactical fitness conference coming up, you and Jeff and several other people. Who all is going to be at that tactical fitness conference coming up
Yeah. So
on the
the,
21st, 22nd, and the 23rd
right.
of
Yep.
this
So we
month?
have. Yeah. So it's down here in Virginia Beach at our facility, and we have Tom from Thorn coming to talk about supplementation. We have Susan Lopez coming to talk nutrition. Dr. Rebecca Ivory talking about stress and operator syndrome. I'll be handling some of the stress and meditation piece and breathing. And then we have Jeff, of course, and Sheldon Stevens coming to do some of the exercise piece. So we'll have a 3-day event. It's pretty much all day long, each one of those
That's
days.
really
So
good because you got the exercise piece, you got the diet piece, and you got the mind piece
right.
all rolled into one conference there. So that's a nice one. I'm trying to make it down to it as well and just sit around and be a student.
Yeah, we'd love to have you, Stu.
All right. So let's talk about something I brought up the other day because I have seen it occur personally with within my own class when I was going through training, but even myself when I was had big events that would occur throughout college, or big presentations, or big tests like the day before Bud starts, and
Mm-hmm.
you got to show up and bring your A game, and just anxiety is just wreaking havoc in our body. So, what exactly is happening, just hormonally speaking, and in our brain and body that's causing us to be so anxious, prior to those moments?
Sure. So our nervous system, the way I explain it is, we have a parasympathetic nervous system, which is made for, I'm sure a lot of people have heard this, the rest and digest, and then our sympathetic nervous system is made for that fight or flight. And what's happening is your body's getting ready for that fight or flight. We start to kind of sense, oh, my heart rate's gone up, my palms are getting sweaty, my pupils are dilated, I'm getting ready. The issue is when that becomes too overwhelming and it's too difficult to come back down from that, and we sort of spin out of control, and that's known as that amygdala hijack. I think it's also really important uh, to understand that if you're going to come back down from a stressful event or not let it get to the point where you can't handle it, is really actually having a relationship with your nervous system, so you can really identify when those moments are happening, right? So it's over time. It's with the practice. Like, you either prepare for it, that event, that day, that presentation, or you haven't. So we were chatting before too, trying to do something the day before probably isn't going to be quite enough to turn some of the anxiety down.
Right. Even though you have some nice breathing tips, that we've all done,
Yeah.
that to help bring us down, it just may not be enough. You're saying because something that I've noticed too is that someone who can be really smart, very high performing person, when you get that amygdala hijack, like you
Yes.
said, and you're in that sympathetic fight or flight mode, it really shuts down the thinking part of your brain. And now
Right.
you really don't think anymore.
Right. And yet, so you have your body will still respond, react to the stress rather than you having the ability to respond appropriately with the right emotions. That, like you said, that part of the brain got turned off. So your amygdala is a part of the brain called your limbic system, which is made for really instinct movement. And so when that part of the brain takes over, it sort of shuts offline your emotional way of going through something in a rational way. And that's for protection. That's to protect you from danger or harm or something like that. And human beings have been wired that way through evolution. Um, and so once you begin to understand, okay, this is becoming a little bit overwhelming, that's when we can start to do some breathing practices or meditation to bring down the anxiety and stress and not let it become this overwhelm where we have no control anymore.
Yeah. So how about this? Being in that fight or flight mode probably isn't bad, like for 10 or 20 minutes prior to breakout of Hell Week.
Right.
Because you're going to be pumped up, ready to go,
Mhm.
and it's game on for the next couple of hours. And then things
Right, it's
start settling
necessary.
down.
Yeah, it's necessary, right? It does get you ready. What also is happening is your adrenaline, epinephrine are getting your body ready for that, right? That's what your pupils dilate, your blood vessels dilate, getting you ready. And hopefully not a lot of thinking has to take place when you're just trying to perform through something. And also when you guys are actually, in buds, all the repetition, is because of this, so that when you are in the actual real life situation, you really don't have time to think, but your body has time to react to the situation of danger. And so the repetition over time with you guys in buds or something so extreme is so important, because we know that the thinking part is somewhat going to come offline.
Right. That's where you come up with the a lot of the terms and phrases that, like, I don't know, I don't even remember, my training just kicked in. Right.
Right,
You
exactly.
tend to hear that
It's
a lot when it's a very high stress situation, very dangerous thing occurring, and then you get through it and you're like, yeah, I wasn't even thinking about all that stuff.
right. And that's what we mean too, by preparing, and the repetition of whether it's the training and stuff, or whether it's a presentation. The preparing for that is so important. That way, when when all of your thought process does go offline, you still have the ability to perform the task needed, without so much of the thinking part.
Right. So how about this? It's real handy, obviously, 20 minutes before game time like that when it's that situation. But how about, 12 hours before, when now, you really just need a good night's sleep,
Mhm.
and you need to, like, not be so fired up right now, but 12 hours prior to Hell Week, or whatever a big event that is, now you're just flooded with all this, like, anxiety of getting started. And for most of us, just getting started is the release, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, now we can roll, right? Finally
Right.
here, it's time to go. But I have seen it, like, make people freeze. We have
Right.
that fight, flight, or freeze, and it's just
Hmm.
like, I'm done. I'm not even going to go attempt this next week.
Right. Yeah. So some of the things you can do 12 hours before there, I think some of it is, once you become aware of your nervous system and having that reaction, is having some of the tools to bring that back down. And not everything has to necessarily do with meditation or breathing. Some of it is like, what are the things that actually that work for you, right? Some people read, some people draw, some people go on walks and stuff like that, because sometimes actually breathing or sitting still is really, really challenging itself, right? Because we have to start to become comfortable with the unknown, and that's really hard to do. And the unknown is the thing that's not going away, like you said, until you're actually in the training, right? So it's more about accepting this is going to happen, this unknown thing is going to happen, and not letting our thoughts spin us out of control. So doing some of the things that are comfortable to you might be beneficial to keep from the overwhelm from happening. So yes, meditation is an incredible practice, as far as really understanding how your breathing is relating to your external environment that you can't control. So what's happening inside of me as as this other unknown is going on, and can I slow my breathing down? And what does that look like? And like I said, some of the other things too can be enjoyable, like reading, walking, stuff like that. That if you're not really into meditation or you're unfamiliar with breath practices, go to the things that you know actually work for you, right? Let's not take those away, and let's not try to change the system, your system, the night before, 12 hours before.
Right.
Some of the things that we teach in here is a consistent meditation practice, just like we do with training, right? You're not going to see results of a breath practice really until you start practicing it. And breath practice and meditation are different, right? Like a breath practice, I think that a lot of SEALs are familiar with box breathing, which is really, really helpful. And what's actually happening when you're doing that is you're counting your breath and slowing it down. So um, it sort of takes your mind to a different place. As soon as you stop counting, or as soon as you lose track of your breathing, the distraction of the unknown or the fear starts to come back in. So the breathing practices and meditation really allow you to focus on slowing down rather than letting the flooding of the unknown start to really influence how you perform and how you feel.
No, that's a great idea because I will say that's my number one go to is box breathing
Yeah.
and using it with walking.
Right.
So I'll
Yeah.
go on like a nice little stroll. We have a little trail back here that I'll walk down. I'll do my force. It doesn't have to be a
Yeah.
particular number. Four
Uh-huh.
4 second in,
4 seconds.
4 second hold, 4 second out, 4 second hold. Just
Right.
getting a big square and just continue that. And that has been very helpful for me over the
The other thing I
years, no
want to
matter what that stress is.
Yeah. The other thing I want to touch on when we're doing that is your parasympathetic nervous system is being activated when you're doing that box breathing, or you're really intentionally, consciously thinking about slowing your breath. Um, and so your parasympathetic nervous system and your vagus nerve, which actually controls your breathing, really starts to lower your heart rate when you're doing that box breathing and you're really focused on it. So allowing your vagus nerve to bring down your breathing instead of firing it up, getting ready for fight or flight is super important. And understanding, okay, you can feel when it's happening. You can physically feel that sensation of your lowered heart rate and your ability to calm down.
Right. So you made a really important used a really important word a minute ago about being aware. So what are
Uh-huh.
some internal awareness cues that we should notice whenever we get fired up? And this can be in any situation, whether you're driving, and because that happens all the time, like people get so pissed off when they're driving. I mean, call it road
I'm,
rage,
I'm
or
familiar as a passenger to that. um,
well, I mean, let's think about the reason why that is, because you're driving and it is potentially dangerous. Our
mhm.
body, feel and mind feel like this is a potentially dangerous situation whenever we're driving and someone cuts you off and you almost get in a wreck, you know, that is that fight
Instant
or flight
trigger.
response. And we are trying to
Instant
survive.
trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so that's okay when that happens, right? That's a really important, almost reflex for protection.
Sure.
But when we get caught up in it, and you stay like that triggered from the stress, that's when it becomes an issue, right? So having some of the things in place, like, okay, I could feel this when you're asking about internal cues. You could almost feel your blood pressure go up, right? Or you start to get a little sweaty, or you can certainly feel your heart rate increasing when that's and especially when it's a little bit unexpected. You can really feel an instant rush, right? And that's your sympathetic nervous system saying, "Hey, we got to take action here." That adrenaline gets released, your epinephrine gets released, and your body's ready to go. So the things that can kind of bring it back down again is what do I have in place to calm down? Is it breathing? Can I actually use my breath to calm back down? And that does take a conscious effort. It's not just like, oh, my body will just slow back down, because like you said, for some people it doesn't, until it really kind of your situation gets out of control. So really having some of those things in place can be really, really beneficial, like in the moment of stress, right? The one thing we can control is our breathing. That's
Yeah.
the one thing we can control, right? We can't always control our external environment, or when someone cuts you off or in buds. You guys know you're preparing for something, but you don't even know exactly what's coming sometimes. So the only thing that we can really control is our internal environment, our breathing. And so having some of those tools, the box breathing, or there's another 4-7-8 breathing, different times of things, and certainly meditation can be beneficial. Maybe not meditation so much when you're driving, but but having some of those things in place, when you sense that overwhelm happening, what is it that we can do, to bring back down the stress? I think another really difficult thing that we see is it your nervous system gets hit over and over and over again, and a lot of people just stay redlining, right? You just
Yeah.
redline it, and then you start to kind of search for those moments, right? You're kind of out looking for it, because that's how your body um, recognizes how to respond. And the more you respond in a certain way, your body gets used to that, right? And so this also has to do with resiliency. If we can start to change how we respond to certain situations, we have the ability to change how our body actually works in those situations. And I'm not saying that we're going to take away your ability to get so heightened when it's needed, but I'm talking about your ability to bring it back down when that sense of overwhelm is there.
Yeah, one of my internal cues is, and I've become aware of this probably in the last 15, 20 years. It's taken some time to kind of grow and understand it. It has been, and I think the earlier you learn this, the better you're going to be.
Right.
Is it starts with me in my gut, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it, for lack of a better term, butterflies in your
Mm-hmm.
stomach, just like hit you there, and then I notice my heart rate increases, and then my breathing increases, and then from
Right.
there, my hands are sweaty, right? So
Yeah.
it starts in my gut and it goes out, and then once I feel it in my gut, I can usually do a quick little assessment of like what is happening here, because maybe it's picking up something that I am not consciously picking up, right? There,
Mm-hmm.
there are those unique
You bet.
moments, with perception. And, so I just do a quick assessment. I'm like, okay. And I have to verbally say this. So I not only say it, but I hear it. I say, there's no threat here,
Mm-hmm.
right? There is no threat here. And that helps so much to just like bring me back down, and then gets my breathing in a normal rhythm. So I start off every time I get that rush is, I just use the term there's no threat here,
Mm-hmm.
as long as there isn't one,
Right.
and and then just bring it down that way. So
Yeah.
the term, I guess you could call that a form of like sports psychology calls them performance cues,
Yep. Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also that's what I mean by awareness too, right? When I'm talking about self-awareness, I'm really talking about how something feels inside, right? How you're relating to the environmental, the stress around you that's not necessarily happening inside. So you're saying, I have this kind of a gut sensation going on. Okay, that's really important that you recognize it, because then we have the ability to do something about it, right? And your cue for you consciously is saying there's no threat. For some people, if they still perceive that threat and it kind of continues, it's really about having the ability to calm down, like you say too, when it's not necessary to be. So also just call it excited, that your body's not so excited. And some for you it's your gut. Some people it starts with your heart rate is beating fast. Okay, I can feel that almost immediately, that my heart rate went
Oh
up
yeah, it
with
can
it.
feel like it's coming through your chest.
You bet. It's sitting in your throat. And
Yeah.
and then we have the opportunity to make change, right? To how am I going to change this so it doesn't become overwhelming? And that's what we talk about, the breathing, or the self-talk also can be, well, it can be beneficial. So that's kind of where we lean on some of the practices that we teach here at Performance First, and starting a consistent practice with understanding what is happening right now, and is this actually appropriate for the stress that's coming at me, or is it not?
Right. So what would you recommend for someone who is like listening and they're like, huh, I probably need some better internal awareness.
Hmm.
I probably also need to understand a little bit better about what you're talking about with um, meditation and just breathing. Maybe breathing first, meditation second. I have my own form of meditation that
Yeah.
I like to call, and it's borderline that. Well, one thing I like to do is I put earplugs in my ears so I can really hear myself breathe.
Oh, I like that.
And then I focus on my breathing while I'm laying down on the floor with my feet elevated on the couch. And then
Hmm.
as soon as I do that, my dog comes right up next to me and lays with me. And then I can feel him do this cleansing breath,
Hmm.
right? And together we are like going through this cleansing breath ritual that we do. And then eventually, as my wife says, you're both snoring in about 10 minutes. So it turns into a nap, but it starts off purely me focusing on breathing and just having my little buddy next to me breathing with me.
Yeah, that's so great, Stu. I think some of some of the things that can help when we're talking about box breathing, and especially when somebody's new to it, meditation has such is some weird stigmas to it, about sitting in a crazy position and and stuff like that. So we can start talking about, the box breathing that you're saying, right? Just learning how to actually slow down your heart rate. I mean, we're breathing all the time, kind of unconsciously. Our body's doing the work. So when we put our conscious effort into our breath and slow it down, then you're starting to build that relationship with your nervous system that I was talking about at the beginning, and really understanding, okay, this is working for me, doing a 4-second inhale, 4-second hold, 4-second exhale, 4-second hold, really allowing you to focus on slowing down that breath. Meditation sort of does a similar thing, but instead of actually manipulating the breath, we're just recognizing it, where you're allowing it to be. Can I actually be with this discomfort? And what is it that's coming up? Can I be okay with what is? I can't change the things that are going to potentially happen, and I don't know them. And so we like to really distract ourselves because we don't like the way that feels, right? So sitting with it and starting to become comfortable, and allowing some of those sensations to come up, because it's not happening necessarily in real time when you're practicing meditation, right? The idea is to practice before the stressful event shows up. So meditation just allows us really to accept the what is, accept what's happening, and feeling the sensations that are happening in our body, and allowing our body to naturally slow down once we realize that the threat isn't actually present, right? So that's sort of how we approach meditation, and meditation. There's so many different types. Like, I love the way that you are describing it. And to me personally, that is a meditation practice. A lot of people go on slow walks where you're really starting to focus on the sounds of nature rather than the sounds of humaning, right? The sounds of
Hmm.
cars going by, the sounds of jets flying over. So really focusing on nature, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're smelling outside naturally is another really good way to incorporate meditation. Um, and then there's a whole bunch of different guided meditations and different apps that can be beneficial to Headspace, Calm. The one I choose is called Insight Timer. So there's all kinds of different types of meditation. I think it's also really important to find things that work for you. If sitting still, and I know a lot of the guys that come through our training have a really hard time just being still.
Sure.
And when you're new to meditation, sometimes that's not the best way to approach it. So finding a position that works for you and having your little buddy next to you, I think, is fantastic. So it's there's no um you're not going to go for like a run or something doing meditation necessarily. Yes, running can release some of the same chemicals that meditation does, but you're not necessarily meditating while you're running. So finding positions that are comfortable to you, that you can be in for a little while to start to recognize what is happening here, is super important when you're starting.
Yeah, I find that, I try meditation, and like I said, it often turns into a nap.
Yeah.
But when I'm doing it, I do notice thoughts that are
Hmm.
coming in. right? And
Mhm.
I'm not sure what to call them. Are they intrusive thoughts, or are they just thoughts? And what is it about meditation that you're doing when you're focusing on your breathing? Because when I'm doing box breathing, I can kind of go to a happy place and not have any thoughts. But then
Yeah.
sometimes something interferes with that box breathing. I forget about box breathing, and now I'm thinking about this thought. So, what about it? Meditation are we doing in that moment? What are we
Yeah. So
trying to do?
where it's like I said before, it's just allowing the things to allowing thoughts to come and go, allowing sensations to come and go. But what happens is we get caught on a thought or the next thought or the next thought, and you don't even know where the first thought came from. And then all of a sudden you're scratching your head and you're like, God, I'm uncomfortable. It's like this where it's like kind of disgusting what our minds do. We're all over the fucking
Oh
place, excuse my
yeah.
language,
Oh,
right?
it's okay.
And that's actually sort of accept we're accepting those things that are, oh, this is, this is coming and going, gosh, that's super annoying that this is happening. And wait a minute, can I come back to my breath and be still for a moment? And it's in those moments of coming back to stillness and feeling your breath and allowing your thoughts and your attention to go back to your breath, where you're feeling it the most. How are you experiencing it? Is my breath short or long? Is it, in my chest, or can I take some, am I breathing deeply, or what is actually happening with my body in this moment? And yeah, we're not going to stop our thoughts. We're human beings. We can't. We're all over the place, and
Right.
on top of that, we're super judgmental. So as soon as you sit down, you're like, oh, I'm not good at this, like I should be doing this better. And again, it's actually just taking you out of that practice, right? That's another distraction. It's sort of, okay, yep, this is hard, I know, and accepting it and coming back to it.
Yeah, I love that term, accept it, because that,
Yep.
that really seems to be the key to successfully, entering your mind and not thinking you're crazy, or not
Right.
thinking that you have an inability to meditate. That's really
Yes.
what meditation is. It's just kind of naming it, saying there's that thought, and then you can deal with it later, or you can deal with it then. You can say, why am I
Yes.
having this thought? Maybe it's
Right.
because I need to focus on this activity after this activity is complete, or,
Yes.
put it. I always try to say, when I have those thoughts, I say, huh, I'll remember that. I'm putting it in my backpack for now, going back to breathing. Right.
Right.
And so,
I think another important thing too to really understand is that meditation isn't going to get rid of something. We're not going into meditation like, oh God, okay, I'm going to stop this from happening, or it's really just allowing the sensations to come up, and we recognize it, and we build our internal awareness as it relates to the external stress. But you're not trying to get rid of it. It's just being okay with it. And once you can start to accept that this is going on, we actually do have the ability to naturally start to slow our breath rate down during a meditation practice, accept what comes up. This is interesting. My thoughts are all over the damn place. Okay, let me come back to my breath where I feel it the most. Can I hear it? And how am I feeling while I'm, sitting there with it? Can I sit
right.
with my discomfort?
Yeah. You know what I found too is that when you have this ability to accept the incoming thoughts that are occurring, and put them in their proper place, it really does help you with, one, calming down. Also helps you with going to sleep at night, because
Hmm.
one of the things that keeps us up at night, just constant thoughts of what I have to do tomorrow,
Right.
right? And especially if it's the night before, seal tree Saturday night and you're going to start Sunday night, it'd be nice to get a good night's sleep before
Right.
staying up for next 5 days. So, having that ability to, breathe through it, re-engage, accept some of those, you know, thoughts that are coming in, put them in their place, and get a good night's sleep.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. I think, and one of the things I tell myself too when I start to get overwhelmed is, what is the story I'm telling myself? And is it true? What is the story I'm telling myself? Because a lot of times also when it's the night before something big, we go to like the worst case situation. Like, what if I don't do this? What if this happens? What if, right? And we start to spin this crazy story that's that's a story. It's not true, right? And so what is the story I'm telling myself, and is it true?
You,
And that's another.
that's a really great one, because you know what I do with that one? I call this contingency thinking,
Yeah.
right? Whenever everything's going wrong, right? I actually put it in a place in my brain of like, this is contingency thinking. This is how it's going to go. However, I have a plan for anything over here that occurs.
The worst case scenarios,
This
right?
is my
And we're
contingency.
so, yeah, and we're so good at the human doing, right? Like you're preparing for some crazy worst case scenario, which 99% of the time isn't going to happen, but you're preparing that in your head. And we don't even know what that looks like. We're just making scenarios up, right?
Yep.
And the majority of the time it's not true and it's not going to happen, right? So accepting like I really don't know what's going to happen the next day, but I've prepared as much as I possibly can, right? So if you do get offline with the thought process, your body's still going to respond appropriately to the stress.
Right. So that is what we've been discussing is what we call left of the boom, right? So
Uh-huh.
you know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
before anything stressful has occurred, we have already made it very stressful, right? We have
Right.
already made it stressful by our own anxiety,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So now,
And to the point where you can almost talk yourself out of
oh, sure.
performing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the other side of it, right? So after the stressful event, and let's say it's a traumatic event that has
Mhm.
occurred, right? How can we use these same tools to help us on the back end of, post traumatic stress
Right.
type
Yeah.
issues that are very common, and especially the tactical world where you see things that are hard to unsee.
Right. And you know, I do want to say this too. Meditation does not take the place of therapy.
Oh no.
Um, yeah, and it does not take the place of when somebody's really struggling and does need actual help from other people. So I just want to make that clear. But again, it's really learning that relationship inside, and when the stress isn't occurring anymore, do we have the ability to retrain our nervous system to come back down into a parasympathetic state where this stress isn't necessary. The issue happens though is that we can't, a lot of people don't have the tools to do so. So then we start to turn to drugs, we start to turn to all these other distractions so that we either don't have to feel it, or so that it gives us this instant, relief. And then, and again, then our nervous system tanks and we look for the next thing. Meditation long term can certainly help um, build resiliency to a traumatic situation. It gives us the ability to understand our body's relationship to our trauma, and how do we come back down from that through meditation or breath practice. I think it's also really important to, even through meditation, to potentially have some support in the rooms. So you're not alone. Nobody's alone. And I know that at times it can really feel like that. And I know this is, we're doing this, a couple weeks after we've lost a couple people
Yeah.
in special forces. And I think it's really important that, meditation is taken seriously, and that when you're practicing, there's a term that we have in meditation called the window of tolerance, meaning that if you're trying to sit with something on purpose that's difficult or challenging, like a situation of trauma, and you feel that sense of overwhelm to the point where you have lost control of your breathing, and it's so uncomfortable to sit there, you're outside of that window of tolerance. We're unable to tolerate what we're trying to work through. So it's super important to stay within that window of tolerance and be open to what might be coming up. And it's really uncomfortable because when we feel vulnerable, we feel really exposed, and we feel really, it can feel humiliating. It can feel like I'm no one should I shouldn't be experiencing this again, or I shouldn't be having this way. So potentially having somebody else in the room with you when you are going through that much trauma is really helpful, and also staying within that window of tolerance and stopping the meditation, stopping the breathing practice when it is overwhelming. There's no reason to sit with it if it's if it's doing more harm than good.
Right. And that, I think that would be a good indicator for anyone that, you need to talk to somebody that is a professional,
Oh, you
you know,
bet.
in mental health. And,
Right.
it could be someone as, if you feel more, and I have seen this work well too, is a sports psychologist,
Mhm.
right? Some reason people will go see a sports psychologist before they go see a psychiatrist or
Yeah.
or a mental therapist. And
Yeah.
I understand that,
Mhm.
but it's the same stuff. They're
Yes.
using the same tools to deal with the anxiety and the obtrusive thoughts and flashbacks, and
Mhm.
something that I've learned from actually a sports psychologist was, just because you're having these thoughts and these memories come back, it doesn't mean you're crazy, right?
Right.
All it
Yeah.
is your body, your brain is dealing with something that was very traumatic, and it is trying to organize it in a way so it doesn't happen again, so you can survive. Our
Mhm.
brain is built to survive, right?
Right.
And it makes
Exactly.
our whole body a survival machine. And uh, I just thought that was very powerful. You're not crazy because you have a flashback. And the thing that I that really hit home to me the most was he he said, imagine you're a deer in the woods, and you're just walking around and you're sniffing and doing all the things that deer do, but you know that you're not the apex predator, so you're always on some kind of an alert. And you smell something, something triggers, a hearing, you hear something, and then all of a sudden a mountain lion jumps out and you get away, right? You live to do what you do another day, right? You escape that. But the next time you're walking around in the woods and you see that little trigger, that smell, that what you hear, those are triggers that may bring back that
Mhm.
thought of that mountain lion coming on, and it may very well be a mountain lion coming on, and you take off before you even see the mountain lion, right? So,
Mhm.
these are just ways that our brain uses exterior or outside awareness to survive. And you're
Right.
not crazy when
Right.
this happens, right?
Yeah,
This
then
is
the
this
the
is a
emotions are
survival
still
skill.
real. Yeah, the emotions are still real, and the sensations that come up are still real, even if the threat is not happening anymore. The traumatic event isn't happening anymore, but the sensations and the emotions are very real, and that's what I mean too. Like when we're sitting and working with that, when it's on purpose, staying within that window of tolerance is really important, and really, you know, being forgiving to yourself that it is difficult. Normalizing that situation for yourself is so important too. Like this is, like you said, this is real. It's normal. Flashback is normal, and allowing yourself um to learn how to be okay with it. And I don't mean like you're going to talk yourself into being okay. Nope, Catherine, you're okay. Stu, I'm good. It's really actually, over time, peeling back some of those layers that we've built up, for protection, right? And it's a slow practice because it is uncomfortable, it is vulnerable, and it's incredibly painful sometimes.
Sure. Have you ever heard the term "name it and tame it"?
Hold on one second. The jets are
Uh,
flying over.
yeah. Have
I'm
you
sorry.
ever heard the term "name it and tame it"?
Yes.
Name it and
Yeah.
tame it. I
Uh-huh.
love that. And that was from a sports psychologist too that I heard this term, but I've applied it to so much more than just sports.
Sure.
It is like that thought that comes in that's really keeping me awake, like give it a name. Your brain says, okay, that's what that is. I'm going to put this
Yeah.
here. Right. And it's no
Right.
longer floating around your head trying to drive you crazy.
Yeah.
I found
So
that to be very useful as well.
yeah, when something comes up too, sometimes we don't even know what the sense that the emotion is. Sometimes we recognize the discomfort without even understanding what it is. Sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's resentment, grief, whatever it is. But it's understanding what is it actually? Can you name it? And can you be okay with it? Is that okay? Or is there something behind it? I'm really angry at this. But what is actually behind the anger? Am I afraid of something? Is there a misunderstanding? Am I blaming? Is there shame? What's actually behind it that this is the instant reaction, but how do I start to kind of peel back these layers to understand it so that it doesn't continue to happen, that doesn't continue to be my reaction when it's not needed.
Yeah. You know where I've used that little name it and tame it phrase often is when my kids were little and they'd have a bad dream.
Ah,
And I'd go in there, we talk about it a little bit, and I said, let's give this a name, right? Let's give whatever this bad dream character was, let's give it a name. And we name it something funny like Booger Eater. And we giggle, and it's like, okay, we won't worry about Booger Eater anymore. And it
right.
just kind of found a little name, found a little little file in the brain, and it quit floating around, and he gets back to sleep again. So it's
Yeah. I think it's super important also to be able to work through those types of situations, because if we don't, that then we start to build up this. You're building the resiliency, not resiliency, but you're building up these habits in not necessarily a healthy way, right? Okay, this is my response to all of these scenarios. I'm just going to be angry, and really not
mm,
understanding, giving yourself the opportunity to understand what you're actually going through or what you're dealing with. And so it's really important to give yourself that opportunity to understand what is actually happening here. No, I'm not just angry. There's probably some sadness or whatever behind it also, right? But a lot of times we don't even allow ourselves to get past that initial response. We're like, F this, I'm just going to go on a tirade and smash things.
right.
So it's really important to give yourself some patience to work through that.
Yeah, I love that. So let's wrap this up, Catherine. What would you say a key takeaway um, for someone interested in just learning how to deal with anxiety and learning and maybe even getting into beginner level meditation?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like I said before too, is starting to build a consistent practice. Like one time of a box breathing or one time of meditation isn't going to be the solution. It's consistent practice over time. And maybe trying for a couple minutes, maybe a couple times a week might be beneficial. I think it's really helpful to have some guidance when you're first starting, because again, our minds are all over the place. So using an app can be really beneficial, and having somebody guide you through that. Um, and there's so many different types of meditations that might resonate with people and that might not work for other people, right? So to really
Sure.
start to explore on some of those apps, I think is super helpful. And also staying consistent with a practice. And at the beginning, it's not going to feel good. It's not going to um oh shoot, are you
Oh, I'm good.
oh, okay, I lost you.
Yep.
I can't. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm
I
so
can
sorry.
hear you. Yeah, we're
Okay.
good.
um it's not super helpful sometimes to do this on your own, because you really don't know like what is coming up. I'm not good at this, so to have guidance at the beginning, and then looking up some of the breathing practices like the box breathing can, like you do with walking, can is awesome. And I think that's a good place to start for beginners, is doing some breathing practices where you can actually um, let your concentration go to the breathing, and you can concentrate mentally on it, and then you can feel it pretty quickly. So I think
Right.
that's great. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
that's awesome. What's that?
I was going to say, trying at different times a day. Like some people really like to start in the mornings doing a breath practice or a meditation practice, setting an intention for the day. And some people, it works better in the afternoon, having the ability to put things down and just sort of reflect. And there's no more, there's no more responsibility really at the end of the day. So I think just kind of trying things that you can start to build your own consistent practice with is really helpful.
Yeah, it's almost like diet and exercise prescription.
Yes,
Everybody
exactly.
kind
Yeah.
of has their own little methods and what works best for them and what they enjoy. And I think that is a great way to kind of frame that mental
Yes.
piece.
Yeah. Yep. And also then you can come and train with Jeff and I in person,
Yeah.
and learn some different meditation. And that's part of our curriculum. If somebody comes here for the 6-week training course, is meditation.
All right. Right. I think it's valuable, very valuable. In fact, check it out. performancefirstus.com. Not only do they have these 6-week training blocks, but they also have a tactical fitness conference coming in the 21st, 22nd, and the 23rd of this month. And I would, if you're especially if you're in the tactical world or considering serving in the tactical professions, you got to give it a check, because it's dealing with everything that's important:
Mm-hmm.
nutrition, the physical fitness, and the mental piece, because that's everything. That
Right.
is that
Yep.
that that a lot of these tactical conferences are focused on fitness, fitness, fitness. Maybe a little bit of
Yep.
nutrition thrown in there. And I'm the fitness guy. I'll be first to admit it, that I have to outsource for nutrition advice. I have to outsource for the mental advice, right?
y-
And you get
Yep.
it all one-stop shop over there at
Yep.
performancefirstus.com,
Yep. That's right.
especially
And we
this
will
coming week.
do. Yeah, we will have a couple meditation practices in that seminar, because I do want people to start to experience what do I, what I'm saying. And so I will be doing a couple guided meditations for that seminar too.
All right. Well, awesome, Catherine. Thank you so much for taking some time and sharing us your expertise in this field, because it's so important. Um, and give Jeff my regards. I'm glad he made this recommendation, because this was great.
Thank you, Stu. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
All right. You too. All right, folks. You guys check out performancefirstus.com for everything over there that we just talked about, as well as, come check out StuSmithFitness.com. That's where I live. And you can, always ask me questions about stuff as well. So
Yep,
until
you can.
next time, you guys have a good one.